Ambassador Kim Hannah walked slowly toward the massive crystal platform that rose from the center of the Galactic Council chamber. Her black uniform shoes clicked against the smooth floor as she moved past rows of strange alien beings, like floating jellyfish made of light. Others had too many arms or eyes that glowed in the dark. All of them were watching her with expressions she could not read. The chamber walls pulsed with soft blue light that came from living organisms grown into the structure itself. The light made everyone look ghostly and cold. Hannah had been in this room many times before, but today felt different. Today would be the last time she stood here as a representative of humanity. "Honored counselors," she said, her voice echoing in the vast space, "I come before you today with humanity's final proposal about the Vorthok threat. We believe military action is not just a good idea, it is the only way to stop them." Now the ethereal chancellor called Veltar began to glow brighter with patterns of light that moved across his crystal-like body. Mana had learned to read these patterns over the years. This one meant he was not happy with what she was saying. "Young species like yours always want to fight," Veltar said in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "Your people have only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years. We have kept peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years by talking to our enemies, not by killing them." Behind Hannah, Captain Park Jun moved his weight from one foot to the other. He was wearing his best military uniform with all his medals and ribbons. As the human military advisor to the council, he had seen all the secret reports about what the Vorthok were doing. He knew that entire star systems were going quiet. No more radio signals. No more ships leaving those systems. Nothing but empty space where millions of people used to live. "I understand your concerns, Chancellor," Hannah said, trying to keep her voice calm. "But in the past 6 months, 17 worlds have been completely destroyed. The Vorthok use living ships that can change themselves to fight against any weapon we use. They do not want to talk. They only want to eat." War Prince Kethmer of the Zephyrian Empire spread his metal wings wide. The wings caught the blue light and threw it back in sharp flashes. His people were proud warriors, but they had very strict rules about when they would fight. "Humans think that being violent makes them strong," Kethmer said in a voice like grinding metal. "We will not dirty our honor by attacking first. That is not the way of civilized beings." Captain Park Jun wanted to speak up. He wanted to tell them about the reports from the border worlds, about families sending desperate messages before their planets went dark, about rescue ships that found nothing but empty husks of worlds with all the life drained out of them. But he was not allowed to speak unless Hannah asked him to. The vote began quickly. Each species had one vote, and they voted by making their bodies glow in different colors. Green meant yes, red meant no, blue meant they were not sure. Hannah watched as one by one the representatives glowed red. They voted against military action. Instead, they wanted to try economic sanctions, would not trade with the Vorthok Empire. They would not let Vorthok ships use their space stations. Hannah almost laughed at how foolish this was. The Vorthok did not need to trade with anyone. They took what they wanted by force. They ate entire planets. What did they care about trade agreements? When the counting was done, 46 species voted for sanctions. Only humanity voted against. The proposal for military action was rejected. Hannah reached into her diplomatic bag and pulled out a small crystal device. She had hoped she would not need to use it today, but the council had made their choice. "Then I have no choice but to give you this," she said, holding up the crystal. "This is humanity's formal notice that we are leaving the Galactic Council. Adding right now, we are no longer members." The chamber exploded with noise. Aliens made sounds like angry birds, grinding rocks, and musical notes played too fast. Many of them started talking at once in languages that sounded like nothing Hannah had ever heard. Chancellor Veltar's glow became very bright and started flashing in patterns that meant he was upset. "You cannot just leave like this," he said. "What about all the agreements we have signed? About the trade deals? What about the technology sharing programs?" "All of those agreements are now canceled," Hannah said in the same calm voice she had used all day. "Humanity thanks you for the years we have worked together. Wish you the best of luck in your future." She turned to walk away, but War Prince Kethmer called out to her. His voice was full of mockery and laughter. Where will you go, little humans? Back to your tiny corner of space with your one-star system? You need us more than we need you. Hannah stopped walking. She turned back to look at him. For just a moment, she let herself smile. We will figure something out, she said. We always do. She walked out of the chamber with Captain Park June. Following behind her, Hannah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For years, she had sat in this room and watched the council make bad decisions. She had tried to warn them about dangers they refused to see. She had suggested solutions they thought were too simple or too violent. Now humanity was free to act on its own, free to protect itself and its allies in whatever way worked best. The council would learn soon enough what happened when you ignored problems until they became too big to handle. Behind her, the aliens were still arguing about what humanity's departure would mean for them. They had no idea how much they had depended on human knowledge and human technology. They would find out soon enough, Dr. Lee. Tay pressed his hands against the cold glass of the observation window and watched his old home get smaller and smaller. The planet Kepler 44 had been his workplace for 15 years. He'd helped build the massive factories that made starship parts and the power plants that gave energy to half the star system. Now it was all gone. How many people did we get off the planet? Captain Choiman asked as he walked up beside the doctor. The captain was a short man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been working without sleep for 3 days to organize the evacuation. 12,000 humans made it onto the ships, Dr. Lee said, looking at the numbers on his tablet computer. We also took 8,000 Cathara refugees and about 3,000 Luminari. The bug people and the light people both asked to come with us when they heard we were leaving. And the factory's gone. All of them. Dr. Lee pointed down at the planet below, where huge industrial buildings used to stand. There were now only empty dark spots on the ground. We took apart every machine, every computer, every piece of equipment we built. The fusion reactors that powered their cities, the mining equipment that dug their metals, the communication arrays that let them talk to other worlds. All of it is now in our cargo holds. Captain Choi nodded. This was the plan. When humanity left the Galactic Council, they decided to take all their technology with them. The alien species had always treated human inventions like they were simple toys. Now they would learn how much they really needed those toys. Captain, came a worried voice over the ship's communication system. This is Navigation Officer Yang. Sue, we have a big problem. Zephyrian warships are coming toward us. You're telling us to turn around and go back to the planet. Captain Choi walked quickly to the nearest wall panel and pressed a button to talk to the bridge. How many ships? 6 heavy cruisers and 2 battleships. They have enough firepower to destroy our entire convoy. Dr. Lee felt his stomach drop. The Zephyrians were proud, bird-like aliens who thought they were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Their ships were huge and covered with weapons. If they wanted to stop the human evacuation, they probably could. Tell them we are exercising our legal right to free movement, Captain Choi said into the communicator. We are not breaking any laws by leaving. They say it does not matter. They want the industrial equipment returned to the planet. They say it belongs to the council now. Captain Choi smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Tell them that is too bad. Activate the new drive system. Dr. Lee had heard rumors about the new drive system, but he had never seen it work. Most humans did not even know it existed. The human government had been developing secret technologies for years, preparing for the day they might need to leave the council. On the bridge of the ship, the crew watched their screens with wide eyes. The Zephyrian warships were getting closer. The alien vessels looked like giant metal birds with their wings spread wide. Weapons ports glowed red along their hulls, ready to fire. Quantum displacement drive is ready, reported Chief Engineer M. Hai from the engine room. All ships in. The convoy are linked and prepared for jump. Do it, Captain Choi ordered. The universe seemed to twist around them. Dr. Lee felt like he was being turned inside out for just a moment. Then everything went back to normal. But when he looked out the window, the Zephyrian warships were gone. The planet was gone. We're floating in empty space between the stars. Quantum displacement successful, Imhai reported. The Zephyrians cannot even detect us anymore. As far as their sensors can tell, we just disappeared. Behind them in the passenger area, the Cathara. Refugees were making excited clicking and buzzing sounds. The Cathera looked like giant insects with 4 arms and big compound eyes. They had been living on Kepler-4 for 2b after their own homeworld was destroyed by the Vorthok Empire. One of the Cathera, a translator named Claked Th, walked up to Dr. Lee. The alien's voice came out of a mechanical device strapped to its throat, because its mouth could not make human sounds. "Humans," Clake said in broken but understandable words, "how do you bend space itself? This technology is beyond what the Council knows." Dr. Lee looked at Captain Choi, who nodded that it was okay to answer. Very carefully, the doctor said. With a small smile, the truth was that human scientists had been working on quantum displacement theory for decades. While the Council species spent their time arguing about politics and tradition, humans had been solving problems. They had figured out how to fold space so that a ship could step from one place to another without actually traveling the distance in between. As the human convoy reappeared in normal space, they were surprised to find they were not alone. Hundreds of other ships were waiting for them. Some were small personal vessels, others were large cargo haulers. They came from many different species. Captain Yang Su reported from the bridge, "We are receiving messages from the other ships. They are refugees from species that the Council has been ignoring. They want to join us." Dr. Lee counted the ships on his tablet. There were vessels from the aquatic peoples, whose ocean worlds were being poisoned by industrial waste. There were ships from the mining clans, whose asteroid homes were being taken over by larger empires. There were even a few ships from the plant collective, whose forest worlds were being cut down for lumber. All of these species had asked the Council for help over the years. All of them had been told that their problems were not important enough to worry about. Now they were all here, looking for someone who would actually help them. "Set course for the outer rim," Captain Choi ordered. "It is time to build something new." Dr. Lee smiled as he watched the fleet of ships turn toward the edge of the galaxy. They were going to a place where no government could tell them what to do, a place where they could build their own society based on actually solving problems instead of just talking about them. The Great Exodus had begun. Chancellor Veltar stood in the center of the council chamber, his crystal body flashing. With colors that showed how worried he was, the patterns of light that moved across his transparent skin were rapid and jagged, like lightning in a storm. He held a datapad in his hands that contained the worst news the galaxy had heard in 1,000 years. 6 months had passed since the humans left the Galactic Council. At first, the other species had laughed about it. They thought the humans were just angry children throwing a tantrum. Nobody was laughing anymore. "Tell me about the Centauri system," Veltar said to Admiral Zechtel, who stood nearby. The Admiral was a sea creature who looked like a giant octopus wearing a military uniform. His tentacles were moving in nervous patterns as he spoke. "The Centauri defense fleet is completely gone," Zechtel said in a voice full of sadness. "The Vorthok Empire attacked 3 days ago. They ate the entire star system. 40 billion people live there. Now there is nothing but empty space." Defense. Minister Korshin leaned forward in his chair. He was from a species that looked like walking rocks, and his voice sounded like grinding stone. "What about the evacuation of Aquatica Prime? Did we save anyone from the water world?" "We failed," Admiral Zechtel said, his tentacles drooping. "The Vorthok bioships changed themselves while we were fighting them. They grew acidic holes that melted our plasma weapons. Our shots just bounced off them like water drops. The creatures are learning how to fight us better every time we meet them." Veltar felt his light dim as he pulled up a holographic display that showed the galaxy's power grid. Red warning signs were flashing all across the star map. Almost half of known space was having power problems. "The humans took more than we thought when they left," he said quietly. "Their fusion reactors were powering half of our infrastructure. The quantum communication networks that let us talk between star systems are falling apart without their maintenance programs." Suddenly, the chamber doors burst open, or Prince Kethmer came flying in, his metal wings making scraping sounds against the doorframe. The proud, bird-like warrior looked terrible. His wings were covered with scratches and dents. His feathers were burned and broken. "My fleet weapons are not working," he screamed. "The targeting systems need some human computer program that we never understood." The gunners cannot hit anything unless they can see it with their own eyes. Please calm down, War Prince, Veltar said. Even though his own world was having power shortages, we need to think clearly about this problem. Calm. Kethmer's voice got so high it hurt to listen to. Vorthok just destroyed the Chronos system. My military academy where I trained was there. My breeding worlds where my children lived were there. Everything is gone. You want me to be calm? Technical advisor Yulmer spoke up from the corner of the room. He was one of the few council members who had actually worked with humans before they left. We need to copy their technology, he said quietly. The quantum drives, the fusion reactors, the weapon systems. We have to figure out how they work. Chief. Scientist Velkoth, who looked like a walking tree with eyes, shook his branches sadly. Impossible. We have been trying for months. Human technology does not make sense. It is chaotic. They somehow made contradictory physics work together. It's like they took rules that should cancel each other out and made them cooperate instead. Veltar's crystal body pulsed with desperate light patterns. Then we must contact the humans. Surely they will not let the entire galaxy burn. They offered us terms, Yulmer reminded everyone. Complete restructuring of galactic government, equal representation for all species, and formal recognition of humanity as a founding member, not a junior partner. The chamber became completely silent. For beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, the idea of sharing power with a species that had only been in space for a few centuries was almost impossible to think about. The ethereals, like Veltar, had brought civilization to the stars when most species were still living in caves. Zephyrians, like Kethmer, had conquered 100 worlds through superior military might. The idea that they should treat humans as equals was like asking a parent to take orders from a toddler. We are the ethereals, Veltar finally said, his voice full of pride even in the face of disaster. We brought civilization to the stars. We taught the galaxy how to live in peace. We cannot simply hand over our authority to a species that barely knows how to fly between planets. His words were cut off as the chamber's lights suddenly flickered and went out. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, bathing everything in a dull red glow that made everyone look like they were covered in blood. Outside the chamber, the first of the human-maintained networks had just shut down completely. The quantum communication array that connected 50 star systems went dark all at once. Billions of beings across the galaxy suddenly found themselves cut off from the rest of civilization in the red emergency lighting. Veltar looked around at the faces of the other council members. For the first time in his very long life, he saw real fear in their eyes. They were beginning to understand that their galaxy was falling apart. They had no idea how to fix it. The humans had not just left the council. They had taken with them all the knowledge and technology that actually kept civilization running. The proud alien species who had thought themselves superior were discovering that they had been dependent on human ingenuity all along, and now the humans were gone, building something new in the outer reaches of space, while the galaxy they had left behind collapsed into chaos. Captain Kim Soo moved her hands carefully over the control panel as she guided the huge construction ship through the floating rocks of the asteroid field. The ship was as big as a city, filled with building materials and workers. 1 year had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. Their new home was finally starting to look like something amazing. Is docking Bay 7 ready for our visitors? She asked First Officer Parkoon, who was working at the engineering station nearby. Yes, Captain. The Luminary delegation can land whenever they want, Parkoon replied, checking his computer screens. And the Cathara hive ships are asking if they can start building their food-growing pods. Kim Soo looked out through the thick glass window of the bridge. What she saw made her feel proud of what humanity had accomplished. The Haven Station was enormous. It had spinning rings where millions of refugees from different species lived in comfortable homes. There were massive shipyards where workers were building new types of spaceships with designs that had never been seen before. And there were defensive platforms floating around the station that seemed to bend light around themselves, making them almost invisible. The station was home to humans, but it was also home to dozens of other species that the old Galactic Council had ignored. The bug-like Cathara grew food in their special pods. The glowing Luminari provided beautiful art and music, The rock-like hegemony workers helped build new sections of the station. Everyone worked together to make something better than what they had left behind. Captain called out Tactical Officer Lee Yoon from his station. "We have ships coming toward us. Vorthok Scout Fleet. 12 bioships." Kim Sue's face stayed calm, even though her heart started beating faster. The Vorthok were the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy. Their ships were alive, like giant bugs crossed with warships. They had eaten hundreds of worlds and millions of people. "Turn on the spatial defense grid," she ordered. The Vorthok ships came closer, moving with confidence. These living vessels had fought against every weapon the galaxy had to offer. Their hulls could change and adapt in real time. If someone shot them with lasers, they would grow mirror-like skin to reflect the beams. If someone used missiles, they would grow thick armor to absorb the explosions. They had never met a weapon they could not adapt to, but they had never met weapons that folded. Space. The human defense platforms around Haven Station activated. Reality itself seemed to twist and bend. The Vorthok ships suddenly found themselves turned inside out. Their biological matter was scattered across dimensions that should not exist. The entire fight lasted only 17 seconds. When it was over, there was nothing left of the Vorthok fleet except some strange particles floating in space. On the bridge, Klekth, the Cathara tactical advisor, made excited clicking sounds. The translator device on his throat turned his clicks into words that humans could understand. "Ow. Do humans make impossible weapons?" he asked in amazement. Kim Sue smiled. "We do not think about what is impossible. We just solve problems." This was the truth about humanity. While other species spent their time arguing about tradition and honor, humans looked at problems and found ways to fix them. If conventional weapons did not work, they invented unconventional ones. If the laws of physics seemed to say something, it was impossible. They found loopholes in those laws. Far away from Haven Station, on the planet Nexus Prime, Chancellor Veltar was having a very different kind of day. The crystal being stood in what used to be the Grand Council chambers, but now the room was falling apart. The walls were cracked, and the lights kept flickering on and off. Emergency Coordinator Yulvin rushed into the room carrying a tablet. "Full of bad news. The riots are getting worse," he reported. "Citizens are demanding answers. Some of them are even saying you should be removed from office." Veltar's crystal body was barely glowing anymore. His energy reserves were critically low because the power systems that kept him alive were failing. "Send another delegation to the humans," he said weakly. "Offer them concessions." "We've already sent 17 delegations," Yulvan replied tiredly. "Their conditions are always the same. Complete reorganization of galactic government. Equal representation for all species. Informal recognition of their technology sharing agreements with the smaller species. And if we refuse, then we continue to collapse while they build the new galactic power in the Outer Rim. Chancellor, we need to face reality. We need them more than they need us." As if the universe wanted to prove his point, the chamber's lights flickered again. Outside, another human-maintained network had just shut down permanently. Another star system lost its communication links. Another group of planets found themselves cut off from the rest of civilization. Veltar looked around at the ruins of his once great council chambers. The Ethereals had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had brought civilization to dozens of species. They had maintained peace and order across countless worlds. But now their empire was crumbling because they had been too proud to recognize the value of the newest species to join them. The humans had not conquered the galaxy through military might like the Zephyrians. They had not ruled through ancient wisdom like the Ethereals. They'd simply solved problems that no one else could solve. And when the established powers refused to listen to their solutions, the humans had left to build something better. Now the old galaxy was dying while the new one was being born in the asteroid. Fields and empty spaces of the Outer Rim, the species that had once mocked humanity as primitive newcomers, were learning the hard way that sometimes the youngest voice in the room has the best ideas. The age of the Galactic Council was ending. The age of humanity was just beginning. Admiral Bayun stood on the bridge of the Prometheus Rising, looking out at the stars through the main viewing window. The ship was huge, bigger than anything humanity had ever built before. Its hull was made of materials that could bend light and deflect energy weapons. 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council, and everything in the galaxy had changed. "Tell me about the enemy fleet," she said to her tactical officer, Commander Ojin. 137 bioships, Ojin reported, reading from his computer screen, including their Great Devourer mothership. The Council's remaining forces are only 12 vessels. Yoon shook her head sadly. The once mighty Galactic Council that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years was down to just 12 ships. The proud ethereals, the warriors Epherians, and dozens of other species were about to be wiped out completely by the Vorthok Empire. Through the ship's communication system, desperate voices were calling for help. The dying Council fleet was begging anyone who would listen to save them from the approaching Vorthok swarm. "Admiral," came a weak voice over the radio. It was Chancellor Veltar, the crystal being who had once dismissed humanity as too young and violent. His voice was barely a whisper now. "We request assistance, in the name of all civilized species." Yoon looked around her bridge crew. There were humans working alongside Cathara Luminari, representatives from 18 other species that had found refuge in the human-free colonies. They had all built something new together after the old system failed them.
What are your
"Terms, Chancellor?" Yoon asked. "Whatever you require, please. Dissolution of the old council. Establishment of a new galactic federation with equal representation for all species. And a formal apology to every species your government dismissed." As lesser, the silence stretched for long moments. Veltar was probably talking to the other council members, trying to decide if they could swallow their pride even to save their own lives. Finally, Veltar's voice returned. "Agreed." Admiral Yoon nodded to her weapons officer. "Chiefo target. The mothership. Prepare the dark matter lance." "Dark matter lance charging," Ojin confirmed. He looked worried. "Sir, are you sure about this? You have never tested it against something that large?" "Time to find out," Yoon replied calmly. The weapon that the Prometheus Rising was about to fire should not have been possible. It was a focused beam of weaponized dark matter. It's the mysterious substance that made up most of the universe, but was invisible to normal detection. The weapon bypassed conventional shields and armor entirely by attacking the very fabric of space itself. The Vorthok mothership was enormous, as big as a small moon. It was a living creature that had been grown rather than built, with organic hulls that could adapt to any attack. The bioconstruct had consumed hundreds of worlds and millions of people. It had never met a weapon it could not defend against. The dark matter lance fired. There was no visible beam, no flash of light, no explosion. The Vorthok mothership simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a massive threat that had terrorized the galaxy for years. The next moment, there was nothing but empty space. Destruction of the mothership sent shockwaves through the Vorthok fleet. The bioships were all connected through a hive mind, sharing thoughts and commands through their living neural networks. When the mothership died, their connection was severed. The remaining bioships either self-destructed in confusion or retreated into deep space, fleeing from a weapon they could not understand. The battle that everyone expected to last for hours was over in minutes. Months later, former Chancellor Veltar stood in the new Federation Council chambers. The room was much smaller and simpler than the old council chambers had been. It was built on Haven Station with input from every member species, designed to be functional rather than impressive. Veltar's role now was simple: administrator of ethereal colonial affairs, reporting to the elected Federation Council. The being, who had once ruled half the galaxy, now managed the needs of his own people as they tried to rebuild their civilization. "The irony is not lost on me," he admitted to President Kim Hanna. She was the former ambassador who had once walked out of the old council chambers when they refused to listen to her warnings about the Vorthok threat. "The species we dismissed as primitive now leads the galaxy's salvation," Veltar continued. Hanna smiled gently. "We never wanted to lead, Veltar. We just wanted to solve problems. The galaxy had a problem, and we solved it." Through the chambers windows, they could see the new galactic fleet. Ships of revolutionary design floated in formation, crewed by dozens of species all working together. The human free colonies had become the new galactic power, not through conquest or force, but through competence and the willingness to help others. What happens now? Veltar asked. Now we build something better, Hannah replied. Together. As their meeting concluded, a message arrived from the Outer Rim. 3 more species had requested membership in the Federation, drawn by its reputation. For protecting the weak and solving problems that seemed impossible, the galaxy had learned a costly lesson. Sometimes the newest voice in the room has the best ideas. Sometimes the species that others dismiss as too young or too different are the ones with the solutions that can save everyone. The old Galactic Council had fallen because of pride and prejudice. The new Federation would succeed because it was built on cooperation and respect for all species. No matter how small or strange they might seem, humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had simply shown it a better way to live.